This, I can already tell, is going to be a difficult start to the 31 Days of Horror. What's going on, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and this is still my 31 Days of Horror. And so, because it's day 2, I decided to watch, well, given the movie I watched on day 1, Phantasm 2, which is a 1988 film. The same year I was born, and like 9 years after the first film. Wow. Once again, written and directed by Don Coscarelli. And I know that I was reading some stuff about how he felt pressure in order to make a sequel because of how much money the first one made. The studio really wanted him to do it. He didn't have too much inspiration or too many great ideas on where to take the story next. He felt like the first film was conclusive. That ending, I don't know how that read as conclusive, but maybe the ambiguous ending is what he actually preferred. But then it came to him. Then he finally got inspired, and we got this movie. Now, granted, I wouldn't say that this is 100% the movie that poor Don would have made, or the sequel he would have made. It's probably mostly, but there's some stuff that, boy. And honestly, if I had to just right off the bat state my opinion, I did not like this movie. I didn't care for this movie. It almost retroactively makes me appreciate the first film more. My issues with the first movie are well described and stated in that first review, but I gotta say that this one blew my mind over how much more confusing it was, or how much more things didn't make sense with the second film. So, like I said, it's obviously being made 9 years later. I believe the story takes place 7 years later. But before that, one thing that I will give some positivity to, even sequels in general, I love when sequels do this. This movie, it all goes to shit after, but the very beginning, the first scene, is literally right when the last movie ends. Like, that ending scene, they even re-show most of the ending scene from the first film, and then they continue on. I love when a sequel says, we're going to pick up immediately where the last movie ended, and we're going to continue the story from there so you don't really miss anything. And you see Reggie, who witnesses Mike being kidnapped and taken by the Ewoks and the tall man. And so he goes and gets some guns, and he's trying to save the day. We finally get to see what the Ewoks look like. We see their faces. Before, they were just little people in robes. Now, you see that they look like little gremlins or goblins or whatever. And they don't even look as creepy as a gremlin. They look like just a real deformed person. Like, I didn't even find them all that scary looking. It just looked weird because they also looked very plasticky or rubbery. I know it's 88, so I'm not saying I expected it to look more realistic than that, but I almost just wondered what was the point of these little Ewoks being the minions from the tall man. Like, is it supposed to make him threatening and menacing that these little guys are running around like the 7 little dwarfs? I don't know, but basically, Reggie earned a lot of points for me. I know I said what I said about poor Reggie in the first film, thinking that he was a little creepy. This movie, he gets so many extra points, not only being the badass that he is at the beginning, where he saves Mike, gets them out of the house, he jumps through the fucking window to get Mike out of there. And then he turned on the oven, and the fireplace was already on, so he knew it was going to blow up the house. And it does. It blows up the house, essentially killing all of the Ewoks that were there. Not the tall man, though. Of course, the tall man's able to get out of there. as quick as he can. But I just said, all right, Reggie's a badass. Awesome. So then we jump ahead years later, and I guess you have to do that because it has been in real time 9 years. And so the studio forced Don, the director, to recast the role of Mike. Because the first film, Don made this on his own money, his own people, and the actor that played Mike wasn't a real actor. He was just some kid that he got to do the movie. And so the studio didn't want that same guy to come back. They wanted a real actor to do it. So they recasted Mike as James LaGrosse, and he was fine. I mean, I don't have any real problems with him acting wise. He did what he had to do. I was fascinating reading that Brad Pitt, a young Brad Pitt, auditioned for this role. Him not getting the role is surprising, but also what would this movie have looked like with a young Brad Pitt? I kind of wish we got it. Reggie, like I said, I'm going to say that Reggie not only gets extra points for that beginning scene, but even throughout the movie, you see that he's taken Mike. They're basically on a road trip because Mike is having these dreams of like weird locations and weird areas. He thinks it's a sign of where the tall man is because the tall man is no longer in the same funeral home that he was in the first movie. They're gone. So they're driving around looking for where they might be, and they pick up a hitchhiker female named Alchemy. How do you not think that maybe there's something going on with a girl named Alchemy? But she's attractive, and Reggie just wants to fuck. And I can appreciate a man like Reggie who he sees a chick. He's not forcing anything on her, right? He's not saying, well, I can give you a ride, but you're going to owe me something. No, he just kind of says, let's see what happens here. And the guy ends up actually getting some action. We get introduced to a new character named Liz Reynolds, who, weirdly enough, Mike is like seeing in his dreams. He's seeing her. He sees that she's in danger. He thinks that like maybe he can save her, and so they're also looking for her as well. This actress is played by Paula Irvin, and acting wise, I mean, she's fine. She's not really required or asked to do a whole lot more other than to be the attractive blonde love interest who's there to sort of be a damsel. She gets a couple scenes where she's basically reenacting and redoing the same stuff that Mike's brother was going through in the first film. Mind you, I was trying to be vague about Mike's brother in the first film, Jody, but I guess he's dead. Like, I guess the character did indeed die. That's what confused me at the end of the first film, where Jody and Mike successfully defeat the tall man. They stick him under that rock. I threw a rock at him. And then Jody, they cut ahead. I guess time passes, and Mike is talking to Reggie, and Reggie just says, oh yeah, Jody died in a car accident. Huh? You mean our main character got killed off in between scenes off screen? And I'm not supposed to be confused by that? Again, I know the point, I think. I say I know. I think the point of these movies is that you're not supposed to fully understand what's going on. You're not supposed to fully know what you're watching and if it's real or what. And so maybe you're supposed to be confused. But when you get to the second movie and they do confirm that Jody's dead, like that's it. You know, it's pretty dumb. It blows my mind that fans were accepting of that. I read that fans actually were pissed about the sequel because of Mike being recast and because of just a lot of things concerning this movie. It makes sense. This is one of the few times that the fans complaining is warranted, is justified. And I'm not even a big fan of that first movie, or really a fan at all. But I just couldn't really understand what was going on there. The tall man is once again played by Angus Scrimm, and he doesn't really have to do a whole lot. It's pretty much his presence. It's him being a tall dude. It's him walking down the halls almost in slow motion because he has the loud thump to his footsteps and he just seems imposing. There's not a whole lot more going on with the character. You still don't fully know what he is. He's not human. He bleeds yellow goo. And it's confusing as far as, are there just a bunch of him cloned? Is it just, because there's no way it's just one guy, right? Like, there's no way. There's something clearly going on with how this tall man character can exist, can just come back seemingly after having everything thrown at him. And also, even though there are dream sequences as far as Mike dreaming about these women being in danger or dreaming about locations, you don't get nearly as much dream sequences or nearly as much dream-like stuff that went on before. The random confusing scenes. Apparently the studio told the director, don't do that. You know that shit where like it was super confusing and people didn't know what was going on? Stop doing that. Now, I appreciate that because I was confused as all hell, but it feels like they replaced those confusing and at least visually interesting, visually creepy type scenes that was in the first movie. As confused as I was, I at least were appreciating what was going on. This movie is just confusing for the sake of being confusing, and you don't have the excuse of, oh, it was a dream, or oh, here's this logical gap. No, it's like, none of this makes sense. None of it makes sense on how this character is alive, or this character comes back, or the tall man is able to find them and just pops up and shows up, or is able to grab somebody out of the window on the 3rd floor of a fucking house, and it's like nothing's really explained as far as that goes. And some of the practical kills are, I guess, decent, but they're few and far between. There's a couple twists at the end of the movie. The very end of the movie I probably dislike even more than the ending of the first film, which is saying a lot. I can't say much more good things about this movie other than what I said about Reggie and the opening scene. There are like 2 or 3 different explosion, like houses blowing up, cars blowing up. They try to ramp up the action or the big sort of effects to make this film feel bigger than it probably really is. They clearly had more money, they clearly had a bigger budget, but I don't think there's a whole lot here story-wise or concept-wise. Like, there's a gem of an idea. There is something that clearly the director has in mind of what this whole Phantasm, tall man stuff is supposed to be, but I don't think he's ever done a good job of really explaining it and really fleshing it out so that me, the audience, who didn't just grow up and watch this as a kid, so I'm just creeped out over nostalgia. Like, I'm watching it and I don't know what the fuck's going on half the time. I don't know what those round balls are that are coming down the halls and sticking people and shredding people, and like, I don't really know what the fuck's going on with a lot of this stuff. I don't know how the tall man keeps coming back. How the ending makes sense. Of like, how did he show up in the front seat after his body just got... it's pretty frustrating. And I originally was going to review all 5 of these Phantasm movies, but I don't know if I'm going to make it, guys. I just don't know. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Phantasm 2? Should I continue on? Have you seen the rest of them? Holy fuck. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later. Please won't you say my desire.